It's hard to remember the very first experience playing chess. I'm looking at this wooden board with some pieces, trying to figure it out. Almost instantly falling in love with this mystery. And I learned how to move the pieces simply watching, following my parents. And then I even was brave enough to make suggestions. And actually, one of the suggestions worked. I did play a little bit with my father, though he died at a very young age, so 39, so I was 7. I remember more playing with my uncle. He was a pretty decent player. I was just in the beginning of my chess journey, and I remember he gave me a rook, handicap. And he beat me. I was so upset. I couldn't beat him instantly. It took time. So for me, just to get stronger. My first big experience was 1972. I played a Blitz championship. I was in quarterfinal. And it was a real one for adults. And I was 9 years old. And I made 9 out of 9 in the quarterfinal. And then I played in the semifinal, and I qualified. I was a pretty good Blitz player, so I was a good player, period, but in Blitz I was even stronger because I was very quick, very sharp. So I qualified for the final when I could face masters, real tough guys. And I played in the final, because I was very small kid, it was hard for me just to sit in the chair to make the moves, and I lost all the games except one. I won one game, lost 5 or 6 games in a row, and I was not ready. My mother took me away, so because it was too early. But it was a good experience. I was lucky because I found the game of chess. This is something that perfectly fits my personality. We all are good for something, but that was the nexus where my memory, analytical skills, determination, by human standards, brute force of calculation, everything worked perfectly, and I've been making progress, and it was more of limiting my eagerness to be involved. So my mother tried to make sure that I don't have too much chess. I'm always hungry for more chess, not to overload me, not to throw me into the big competitions too early. Because she remembered this experience of this Blitz championship in Baku. It was too early. And that's why later on, when she was pushed by some of our friends, relatives, yes, let's make sure Garry plays this tournament. She said, no, just, don't rush. Don't rush. Give him time to get stronger, to get mature, and to be ready to have enough stamina for serious competitions. Because it's not just about playing. You have to play and you have to win. A lot of people around me believed that I could be a great player. I could be even the world champion. I remember in 1972, when Bobby Fischer won his title, beating Boris Spassky. I was given a present from one of our relatives. And it was a chess board. And there was a chess board, and it had squares surrounding the board with pictures of world champions. There were 11. And then there was one square left, and I was told it would be for Karpov, because I really expected Karpov to challenge Fischer. And a relative who gave this present said, there's no square, but there's a room. And I hope that that will be your place in chess history. From the very beginning, we believed in number 13. It's prodigious. I couldn't help myself thinking that Karpov was number 12. So I was born April 13. So maybe I was destined to become number 13 as a world champion. I remember that in 1978 when Korchnoi played Karpov, many just among my friends, just rooted for Korchnoi. That's normal reaction of many people of the Soviet Union, Soviet intelligentsia. They just saw Karpov as a symbol of the system and Korchnoi as a defector. So it was a kind of kitchen protest against the system. And I remember I talked to my mother, and she said, "Oh yeah, it would be nice, of course, if Korchnoi would win, but then you would not become number 13." And it was definitely symbolic that in 1983, when I played Viktor Korchnoi in the semifinal, and I won the match, Petra Levry, Korchnoi's wife, came to my mother, and you should remember, 1983, it's Soviet Union. Andropov is general secretary, KGB is in power, and Korchnoi is a defector, and she was talking to my mother. She said Garry would never beat Karpov in the Soviet Union, think about running away. So my mother said, no, we'll hope we can win by staying in our country. And Petra gave a present, a number 13 made of gold and diamonds, that little necklace that she made for Baguio in 1978, expecting Korchnoi to win. She gave it to my mother saying, that's for your good luck. So that's number 13. So was it a destiny? Probably. I think we all have an intuition. I always thought about intuition being kind of a muscle. So you don't train your muscles, they get weak. To make them strong, to make them dynamic, you just have to trust your intuition. You have to train. Maybe there are different kinds of intuition, but mine was based very much on ability to evaluate different factors while playing chess, and thus being very comfortable with positions where you could hardly find a well-known pattern. So with imbalanced positions, with broken balance, positions where each mistake, even inaccuracy, would be lethal. I spent a lot of time at the chessboard, facing many opponents, but it was not just playing in tournaments or in short matches. I played Anatoly Karpov dozens and dozens of games, actually 144 games only in the World Championship matches, not counting a few dozens of games we played outside of the World Championship. And I know that if you spend this time with someone who is just sitting opposite you, you can feel something, you can make certain predictions. I'm sure it works other way. It works other way around. So it's not one-way street. But I have to say that I could immediately feel when my move had an effect on my opponent. I remember, for instance, game 24 of my match against Karpov in 1985, decisive game. Karpov had to win. He built a very strong attacking position, but he was not comfortable with an immediate breakthrough, which was the best chance, not winning, but it was the best chance because it could put me under tremendous pressure and I had to find only moves to survive. But Karpov, being Karpov, didn't want to break through immediately, he wanted to prepare it. He made a quiet move because he didn't see what I can do to prevent it. And I found a very unusual maneuver. highly unusual by just doubling my rooks behind my own pawns. Just looked ridiculous, but it stopped Karpov from making this advance. And I remember when I made this move, rook e7, and Karpov looked at the board. It's almost in disbelief. And he immediately realized, still world champion, great player, that he missed this moment. He missed the moment for this breakthrough. And that was not just a moment missed, because the title was at stake, the world championship title. And I knew when I just looked at him that his confidence was shattered. And I ended up winning this game and winning the match and winning the title. Chess in the Soviet Union was fully integrated in the political system. It was a very important propaganda tool for the communist regime. And while playing Karpov, especially at the time of the great change in the Soviet Union, made me part of this process. And I wanted to help my country because it was all about making the difference, changing the system, turning Russia, Soviet Union and then Russia, into a democratic state. Since I left chess, I believe what I've been doing was more of human rights activism, fighting for democracy, trying to restore democracy in Russia, without big success, but also promoting these values around the world. For the last several years, I have been chairman of Human Rights Foundation, New York-based Human Rights Foundation. And I'm also engaged in social media, promoting values that I believe are important. And now we could see that there are many challenges, not only in Russia, not only in countries that are not typically considered to be democratic, but also there are splits in the free world, where all of a sudden many people believe that the values, the core values of the free world are no longer as important as they used to be. And I didn't see any discomfort moving from professional chess into what people mistakenly call political life. Because I've been engaged in political fights in the Soviet Union. Chess was always an important political tool. The only relevant lesson from my chess career that I could take with me into my new life was that you had to be objective while assessing the position. And I had this joke, some say a very sad joke, saying that the difference between chess and Putin's Russia was that in chess, we always had fixed rules and unpredictable results, while in Putin's Russia, it was exactly the opposite. But I was not devastated by what some people believed was a big loss, because I failed to carry the changes that I believe were vital for my country. I ended up living in New York in exile, but it was another part of my journey, an important part of my journey. I did many important things, and I made a difference. Not as substantial as I've made in the world of chess, but I didn't expect to have the same accomplishments elsewhere in other walks of life, because I knew chess was unique. So it's a full life. I feel comfortable by wearing these new hats.